Chapter 9. Poets, Polytheists, and Jews. Did Muhammad really kill all those people? We'd be better off if the earth opened up and swallowed us. This is how the Jewish chief Ka'b reacted to the slaughter at Badr. He set off for Mecca to discuss with its elders how to deal with Muhammad. "Islam has shown its true colors," exclaimed Abdullah the Lion Chief. "Will no one strike him by surprise and end his murder, theft, and lies?" This was the protest of Asma, a humble poet from the Wolf tribe. She called for Muhammad's assassination because there was no way to bring a chief to the law court, but she was of such low status that there was no danger that anyone would take her seriously. That night it was Muhammad who sent an assassin. He broke into Asma's house, prized her baby from her breast, and plunged his sword through her heart. Her family was so terrified that they all converted to Islam the next day. The aged Abu Afaq also complained about the murderers at Badr. "There came by a horseman who split us in two, forbidding on what we should do. If lions and wolves never bow down to kings, why heed we a stranger on all kinds of things?" Muhammad sent an assassin to Abu Afaq, who stabbed the poet through his liver with the words, "Take that, no matter how old you are." Abdullah the Lion Chief took fright. He went to Muhammad and declared himself a Muslim. For several months he made a public display of his conversion. Every Friday at the mosque he would introduce Muhammad's sermon with the words, "This is Allah's messenger among you. Hear and obey." Ramadan, the month of fasting, ended and Muhammad introduced a new festival, the Eid al-Fitr. It was accompanied by a new prayer ritual in the mosque, a parade, and a compulsory charity tax, later fixed at 1/40th of one's wealth. The Quraysh prisoners who had been captured at Badr knew embarrassing secrets about Muhammad's past. They had already gossiped to the Jews about the satanic verses. Ammar wanted to behead them, but Muhammad accepted Abu Bakr's suggestion of selling them back to their families and sending them home. Muhammad had to deal with the Jews. There were 3 Jewish tribes. He confronted the Kainoka tribe first. He gathered them at the bazaar and told them, "You know from your scriptures that I am a prophet sent by Allah, so it's time for you to become Muslims. Otherwise Allah might punish you in the way he punished the Quraysh." The Jews replied, "Muhammad, you are not our chief. If you fought men like us, you would find that we are real men." Gabriel told Muhammad that he should fight anyone from whom he feared treachery. Muhammad announced that he feared treachery from the Kainoka, and he declared war on them. The Kainoka retreated to a great stone fortress where the Muslim army could not reach them. Muhammad besieged them vigorously, but they did not retaliate by so much as firing an arrow. As the siege continued, the Kainoka became afraid, for a siege could only last as long as the food. After 2 weeks, they surrendered. Muhammad ordered the men to be killed and all their possessions to be given to the Muslims. The Kainoka were old allies of the lions, so Abdullah the Lion Chief forced his way past Muhammad's doorman and demanded, "Muhammad, treat my friends kindly. This tribe protected me from my enemies in the last 2 wars, and you can't mow them down in one morning." Muhammad was not ready to oppose Abdullah directly, so he had to drop the idea of killing the Kainoka. Instead, he banished them to Syria. He took 1/5 of their property and divided the other 4/5 among the warriors who had besieged them. By evicting the Kainoka, Muhammad had broken the contract of Medina. After this, nobody pretended that the famous contract still existed. On the 6th of June, the Muslims celebrated the first Eid al-Adha in Medina. The Polytheists of Mecca had always performed this ceremony at the Kaaba, but it was the first time Adha had been celebrated as a Muslim festival for Allah. Muhammad had led the prayers, then slaughtered 2 goats with his own hands. Muhammad had married off his daughter Fatima to his cousin Ali. When Fatima heard the news, she burst into tears. She protested that Ali was too short, too fat, and had groggy eyes. Nevertheless, their wedding was celebrated that June. The newlyweds started out in poverty. Since they had no slaves, Fatima carried water, milled grains, and swept the floor until she was bruised, blistered, and dusty. Their relationship was stormy. Muhammad had to advise Fatima to pay more attention to Ali's comfort, and Ali had to promise to stop beating her. Despite these problems, they produced 4 children in 5 years. The Jewish chief Ka'b returned from his conference with the chiefs of Mecca. He had written a series of poems, including a lament about the Badr robbery and a love song about one of Muhammad's aunts. Muhammad was so offended by Ka'b's poetry that he asked, "Who will get rid of him for me?" 5 Muslims volunteered, one of them Ka'b's own foster brother. The group tricked Ka'b into coming out of his house in the middle of the night. They surrounded him, drove a dagger through his stomach, and cut off his head. The next morning Muhammad made a public proclamation to the Muslims, "Kill any Jew who falls into your power." On hearing these words, a Muslim merchant jumped on his Jewish business partner and killed him. Every Jew in Medina feared for his life. The chief Huyay confronted Muhammad and asked him what the murders were about. Muhammad explained, "Ka'b was murdered because he voiced hurtful opinions. We'll kill anyone who talks like that." They signed a new contract. The conditions were that Muslims would stop killing Jews if the Jews stopped hurting Muhammad and never assisted anyone against him. Huyay swore the oath, taking God as his witness. For several months the Jews spoke and acted carefully. Muhammad sent his son Zayd to rob another Quraysh caravan. The merchants escaped, but Zayd captured £500,000 worth of silver vessels and the nomad guide. The Muslims promised not to kill the guide if he became a Muslim, so he became a Muslim and they did not kill him. His name was Furat ibn Hayyan. He was the first man in history to be converted to Islam by force. Other tribes had become angry with Muhammad. The Ghatafan were allies of the Jews in Medina. The Sulaim had relatives who had been killed at Badr. Both were large, powerful nomadic tribes. 3 times Muhammad heard rumors that the Sulaim or the Ghatafan, or both, were gathering an army to attack him. So he took his own men out on expeditions to fight them. He never found the enemy armies. They had always fled by the time he had arrived. It is not clear whether the plots were all talk and no serious intention, or whether Muhammad himself had started the rumors of plotting so that he would have an excuse to attack. It was difficult to track nomadic tribes in the vast desert. For the same reason, it was even more difficult to spy on them and discover their plots. Each time Muhammad had to return home without fighting anyone, although he was once able to steal a herd of 500 camels and kidnap their herders. By the year 625, Muhammad had 4 wives. Gabriel then told him that 4 was the maximum number that any Muslim should have. Meanwhile, the Quraysh had plotted their revenge for their fathers, sons, and brothers who had been killed at the Badr robbery. Abu Sufyan brought an army of 3,000 to Medina and camped in the valley of Mount Uhud. The younger Muslims were eager to fight, and Muhammad led an army of 1,000 out to meet the Quraysh. Abu Sufyan sent a message to the lions and wolves to remind them that he was not fighting them, but only Muhammad. Abdullah the lion chief then ordered his men home again. 300 of them. On the 26th of March, 625, the two armies lined up on opposite sides of the valley. The Muslims were outnumbered over 4-1. Muhammad, wearing 2 mail coats, told the captain of the archers, "Keep firing on the war horses. Don't move from your position so that they can't reach us from the rear." Both sides charged, with the Muslims yelling, "Kill! Kill!" while the Meccans threw rocks and screamed, "Al-Lat, al-Uzza, Hubal!" The men fought and the battle grew fierce as the Muslim archers terrified the Meccan horses. Muhammad's wife Aisha was working as a battle aid, filling and refilling her pitcher so that she could pour water into the mouths of the warriors. An enemy arrow caught the skirt of the woman next to her. She fell over but was not seriously hurt. The Muslims killed the Meccan banner bearers one after the other. They drove the Meccan horsemen to retreat. When the horses tried to countercharge, the Muslim archers rained down arrows on them. Soon the Muslim army had surged to the Meccans' rear and cut off their retreat. At that moment, when the Muslim victory looked certain, the Muslim archers abandoned their post of duty. Seeing that they could enter the Meccan camp safely, they swarmed into it shouting, "The plunder! The plunder!" This exposed the Muslim rear to the Meccan war horses. They thundered into the gap, then charged the Muslims from behind. The Muslim army was thrown into confusion. They retreated, dropping their loot, lashing out blindly at the new attack, and even felling their own men, while the Meccans cut them down and killed dozens of them. When someone shouted, "I have killed Muhammad," the Muslims panicked. The Meccans pursued them until they fled in every direction. Actually, Muhammad had not been killed, but the battle was lost. Abu Sufyan's wife walked among the dead bodies, chopping limbs and stabbing chests, cutting off ears and noses and threading them into anklets, bracelets, and necklaces. She even cut out the liver of Muhammad's dead uncle and tried to eat it, but it tasted so foul that she could not swallow it and spat it out. Abu Sufyan climbed to the top of the mountain and shouted down, "Good work! It was our turn to win, and today pays you back for Badr. Hubal be exalted." Omar shouted back, "Allah is greater. Our dead are in heaven and yours are in hell." "Meet us again at Badr next year." "Yes," yelled the Muslims. "Appointment." 70 comrade and 5 immigrant Muslims lay dead on the field, along with 23 Meccans. Muhammad promised the survivors, "Allah will bring back to life every man who died for him."